I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop on a Saturday morning reading a book I had been meaning to finish for months. The sun was streaming through the window. My cappuccino was still warm, and for the first time, in what felt like forever, I felt genuinely at peace. No anxiety, no second-guessing myself, just quiet contentment. Then my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down and saw a name I had not seen in 3 years. Jessica. The message read, "Can we talk? I miss what we had." I stared at those words for a long moment, waiting for the flood of emotions I thought would come. But nothing happened. No anger, no sadness, just a strange, calm silence. 3 years ago, those words would have destroyed me. Today, they just made me smile. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. If you have ever been through a divorce or a tough breakup, hit that like button and subscribe because this story gets better. Trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. Let me take you back to the beginning. I met Jessica when I was 28 years old, and she was 26. It was at an art gallery opening in Portland, one of those events where people pretend to understand abstract paintings while sipping cheap wine. I was there because my coworker dragged me along. Jessica was there because she actually loved art. We started talking in front of a painting that looked like someone had thrown paint at a canvas, and somehow we ended up talking for 3 hours straight. She was vibrant, full of energy, and had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. I was the opposite. Steady, predictable. I worked as a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company. My life was comfortable, but honestly a little boring. Jessica brought color into my world. She loved traveling, trying new restaurants, going on spontaneous weekend trips. She made me feel alive in ways I had not felt before. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. I did it on a beach at sunset, just the two of us. She said yes, without hesitation. Our wedding was small, just close family and a handful of friends right there on the same beach. I remember thinking that day that I was the luckiest man alive. The first year of marriage was everything I had hoped for. We would cook dinner together on weeknights, her terrible singing filling our small apartment. We would take road trips on weekends, getting lost on purpose, just to see where we ended up. I felt like we were building something real, something lasting. But somewhere around the 2-year mark, things started to shift. Jessica began complaining that our life had become too predictable. She would say things like, "Is this really all there is, Max? Or do you ever want to do something crazy?" At first I thought she was just restless. I suggested we plan a big trip, maybe take a few weeks off and go backpacking through Europe. But that was not what she meant. She wanted me to be different. She wanted me to quit my stable job and start some risky business venture. She wanted spontaneity every single day, not just on weekends. I tried to explain that I wanted to build a solid financial foundation first, that we could take bigger risks once we had some savings. But she saw it as me being boring, playing it safe. The arguments became more frequent. We would fight about money, about our future, about the kind of life we wanted, and then she started going out more. She made a new group of friends, people who worked freelance or traveled constantly. People who lived what she called a free lifestyle. She would come home later and later, sometimes not until 2 or 3 in the morning. One night, she walked in at 3 a.m., reeking of alcohol. I asked her where she had been. She turned on me, her eyes flashing with anger. "You are not my father, Max. I can do whatever I want." I did not know what to say. I just watched her stumble to the bedroom and pass out. That was when I knew something was seriously wrong. But I did not want to believe it. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that she would come back to me. Then came the night that changed everything. I had a meeting that got canceled, so I left work early. I got home around 6 p.m., earlier than usual. As I opened the front door, I heard laughter coming from our bedroom. But it was not just her laugh. There was a man's voice, too. My heart started pounding. I walked down the hallway, each step feeling like it took an eternity. I opened the bedroom door and saw her. Jessica. With another man, Derek. I found out later he was an old college friend of hers. They were not even trying to hide it. The room went silent. I just stood there, frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. Jessica did not apologize. She did not cry or beg for forgiveness. Instead, she looked at me with something like defiance and said, "This is who I am, Max. You made me feel trapped." I could not speak. I turned around, grabbed my keys, and walked out. I drove to a hotel and checked in for the night. I sat on the edge of that hotel bed, staring at the wall, trying to understand what had just happened. I did not eat. I did not sleep. I just sat there numb. The next few days were a blur. I called my best friend Greg, and when I tried to tell him what happened, I broke down crying for the first time in years. He came over to the hotel and stayed with me for 2 days straight. He kept saying things like, "She does not deserve you, man. You are going to get through this." But I did not feel like I was going to get through anything. I felt like my entire world had collapsed. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had built was gone. I kept replaying the moment over and over in my head, asking myself what I had done wrong. Was I not exciting enough? Was I too boring? Did I fail her? The questions consumed me. Jessica filed for divorce 2 weeks later. I did not fight it. What was the point? The trust was gone. The love, or whatever I thought was love, had been shattered. The divorce process took 6 months, and every moment of it was torture. We had to divide our assets. The apartment we had bought together, the car, the furniture, all the little things we had collected over the years. Each item felt like another piece of my heart being ripped away. Jessica wanted to keep the apartment. I agreed, because I could not stand the thought of living there anymore, surrounded by memories of what we used to be. I moved into a tiny studio apartment on the other side of town. It was in an older building, nothing fancy. The place was barely furnished. I had a bed, a cheap desk I bought at a thrift store, and a few boxes of clothes and books. That was it. The first few nights in that apartment were the loneliest of my life. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My mind would not stop racing. I kept thinking about all the ways I had failed, all the things I should have done differently. I started asking myself terrible questions. Was I not enough? Did I fail her? Was I too boring? The self-doubt was suffocating. I stopped hanging out with friends. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped doing anything that was not absolutely necessary. I would wake up, go to work, come home, and sit in silence. My boss noticed my performance slipping. He pulled me aside one day and asked if everything was okay. I lied and said I was fine. But I was not fine. I was falling apart. One Friday night, about 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I hit rock bottom. I was sitting alone in my dark apartment, drinking a beer, scrolling through old photos of Jessica and me on my phone. There was one from our wedding day. We looked so happy. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred with tears. My phone rang. It was Greg. I did not answer. I could not. I was crying too hard. He called again, and again. Finally, he started pounding on my door. He would not stop until I opened it. When I finally let him in, he took one look at me and said, "Enough, man. You cannot let her win like this. Look at yourself." I walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. I barely recognized the person staring back at me. I had a scraggly beard, bloodshot eyes, and I had lost about 10 pounds. I looked like a ghost. Greg sat me down and said, "Tomorrow we start fixing this. Not for her. For you." The next morning, Greg dragged me to the gym. I had not worked out in months, and it showed. I could barely lift the weights I used to handle easily. My body felt weak, my endurance was gone. But Greg did not let me quit. He said, "Just show up. That is all you have to do today. Just show up." So I did. And the next day I showed up again. The first 2 weeks were brutal. My body ached, and mentally I still felt empty. But something strange started to happen. After each workout, I felt a tiny bit lighter. Not physically, but emotionally. It was like I was sweating out some of the pain. I also started going to yoga classes in the mornings. At first I felt ridiculous, the only guy in a room full of women doing stretches. But the instructor taught us meditation techniques, and slowly I learned how to quiet my mind. I started reading books about personal growth. Atomic Habits taught me about building better routines. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F times SCK taught me about letting go of things I could not control. I know it sounds cliché, but those books actually helped. They gave me a framework for rebuilding myself. And bit by bit I did. I started eating better. I started sleeping through the night. I stopped checking Jessica's social media. I focused on work again, and started pouring my energy into a new project at the office. My boss noticed the change and praised my initiative. For the first time in months, I felt like I was moving forward instead of drowning. One day, about 3 months into my recovery, I realized something. I had not thought about Jessica in an entire week. That might not sound like much, but for me it was huge. It meant she was no longer occupying every corner of my mind. I was starting to reclaim my life. A year after the divorce, I was a completely different person. Physically, I had gained back the weight I lost, but this time it was muscle. I was in the best shape of my life. I got a clean haircut, updated my wardrobe, and actually started caring about how I looked again. Not for anyone else, but for me. At work, I got promoted to senior engineer. My salary increased significantly, and I finally felt like I was on solid ground financially. But the biggest changes were not external. They were internal. I had learned to be comfortable alone. I did not need someone else to validate me or make me feel whole. I picked up new hobbies. I joined a photography club and started taking weekend trips to capture landscapes. I went hiking every Saturday, exploring trails I had never been to before. Through the photography club, I met a whole new group of people. They were kind, genuine, and had no connection to my past. One of them was a woman named Sarah. She was a kindergarten teacher, soft-spoken, and thoughtful. We became friends quickly. We would grab coffee after club meetings and talk about everything from art to life philosophy. Sarah never pushed for anything more, and neither did I. We were just two people enjoying each other's company without any pressure or expectations. One morning I woke up, made myself coffee, and sat on the small balcony of my apartment. I looked out at the city as the sun came up, and I realized something profound. I had not thought about Jessica in over a week. Again. But this time it was not just that I had not thought about her. It was that I did not need to. She was no longer a part of my story. I had built a new life, a better life, and she had no place in it. I felt free. Then exactly 3 years after our divorce was finalized, I got that text message. I was at the coffee shop reading my book when my phone buzzed. "Can we talk? I miss what we had. I made a huge mistake." It was Jessica. I read the message twice, waiting for some kind of emotional response. Anger, hurt, longing. But there was nothing. Just a calm, almost detached curiosity. I did not reply right away. Instead, I finished my coffee, went to the gym like I always did, and went about my day. That evening, my phone rang. It was her. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello, Jessica." Her voice was shaky. "Max, thank you for picking up. I did not think you would." "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She took a deep breath. "I want to talk. I need to see you. I made a terrible mistake, Max. Derek left me after about a year. I have been in a few other relationships since, but none of them worked out. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realized that you were the best thing I ever had. I was stupid. I was selfish. I threw away something real for something meaningless." I listened without interrupting. Part of me wanted to hang up, but another part was curious. What did she expect me to say? "Why now, Jessica?" I asked. There was a pause. Then she said, "I saw your photos on social media. You look so happy. You have this whole new life, and I realized what I lost. I realized that I gave up someone who truly loved me. Can we try again? Can we start over?" And there it was. She did not come back because she loved me. She came back because she saw that I was happy without her. She came back because I had moved on and she could not stand it. I felt a strange sense of clarity in that moment. "All right," I said. "Let us meet. One time. We can talk." She sounded relieved. "Thank you, Max. Thank you so much. How about tomorrow? At that coffee shop we used to go to," I agreed. The next day I arrived at the coffee shop a few minutes early. I ordered my usual cappuccino and sat by the window. When Jessica walked in, I almost did not recognize her. She looked tired. The vibrancy I remembered was gone. Her hair was different, shorter, and there was something in her eyes that looked like regret. She sat down across from me and tried to smile. "Hi, Max." "Hi." For a few minutes we sat in awkward silence. Then she started talking. She talked about how hard the past few years had been for her. How Derek had turned out to be unreliable and immature. How her other relationships had failed. How she had felt lost and alone. She talked about our good memories, the trips we took, the nights we stayed up talking. She was trying to paint a picture of what we used to have, hoping I would want it back. But all I felt was distance. It was like she was talking about two completely different people. Then she reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "We can start over, Max. I have changed. I know what I want now, and it is you." I gently pulled my hand away. I looked at her and I felt nothing but calm. "I believe you have changed, Jessica, but so have I. And the person I am now does not need what we had before." She looked stunned. "What do you mean?" I took a breath and chose my words carefully. "You left when I needed you most. You chose someone else when I was trying to build something with you. I spent a year in hell, Jessica. I cried myself to sleep. I questioned everything about myself. I wondered if I was not good enough, not exciting enough, not enough, period. But you know what? That pain made me realize something. I was trying to be someone I was not just to keep you happy. I was bending myself into shapes that did not fit, hoping you would love me. But love should not feel like that. Her eyes started to water. I am so sorry, Max. I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But people make mistakes. Can you not forgive me? I do forgive you, I said. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Forgiveness does not mean I am angry anymore. It means I have let go. But forgiveness does not mean going back. It means I am free to move forward. She wiped her eyes. Is there someone else? I smiled. A genuine smile. There is someone. Me. The version of me who knows his worth. The version who does not need someone else to feel complete. Jessica sat back in her chair, realizing that this was really the end. I never thought you would move on, she said quietly. I always thought you would be there waiting. I admitted. For a long time I was. But not anymore. We sat there for another few minutes, but there was nothing left to say. Eventually she stood up. I guess this is goodbye then. I guess it is, I said. She walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. I hope you are happy, Max. I am, I said. And I meant it. She left, and I watched her disappear down the street. I did not feel sad. I did not feel angry. I felt free. A few weeks later, I threw myself into a new project at work. It was challenging, but I loved it. I also started writing a blog about my journey through divorce and recovery. I wanted to share my story with other people who might be going through the same thing. The response was overwhelming. I got messages from strangers thanking me, telling me my words helped them. It felt good to turn my pain into something that could help others. Sarah and I continued to spend time together. One evening, after a long hike, we sat on a rock overlooking a valley, watching the sunset. She turned to me and said, I admire how strong you are, Max. I smiled. I was not always like this. I had to learn the hard way. She looked at me with those kind eyes and said, well, I am glad you did. That was when I realized I had feelings for her. Real feelings. But this time, I was not in a rush. I did not need to jump into something just to fill a void. I was whole on my own. If something developed with Sarah, it would be because we genuinely wanted to share our lives, not because we needed each other to feel complete. One morning, I got a text from an unknown number. I opened it out of curiosity. It was Jessica again. The message said, I just wanted to say I am sorry one more time. I hope you find everything you are looking for. I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without replying. I did not need closure from her anymore. I had already found it within myself. That afternoon, I met up with Greg for lunch. He looked at me and grinned. You look good, man. Really good. I feel good, I said. Thanks for not giving up on me. Never, he said. That is what brothers do. As I walked home that day, I thought about everything I had been through. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the months of despair, and then the slow, painful climb back to myself. I thought about how Jessica's return had meant nothing to me. How her apologies had fallen flat. Not because I was bitter, but because I had genuinely moved on. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, and I was proud of the man I had become. Looking back now, I can see that the divorce was not the end of my life. It was the beginning of a new one, a better one. I learned things about myself that I never would have learned if I had stayed in that marriage. I learned that I am stronger than I thought. I learned that happiness does not come from another person. It comes from within. I learned that betrayal will break you, but only if you let it define you. And I learned that the best revenge is not bitterness or anger. It is becoming so happy that you do not care anymore. Jessica taught me one final lesson, even though she did not mean to. She taught me that you cannot save a relationship with someone who is not willing to save it with you. You can bend and compromise and sacrifice, but if the other person is not doing the same, it will never work. And when that person realizes their mistake and tries to come back, it will be too late. Not because you are punishing them, but because you have already moved on. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the years I spent with Jessica. I do not. Those years taught me what I wanted and, more importantly, what I did not want. They taught me to value myself, to set boundaries, to recognize my worth. And they led me to where I am today. Sitting in my favorite coffee shop, reading a good book with a sense of peace I never had before. Sarah and I are taking things slow, but I can feel something real building between us. Something built on mutual respect and genuine affection, not need or desperation. I wake up every morning grateful for the life I have built. I no longer fear being alone because I know I am good company for myself. I no longer need someone else to validate me because I have learned to validate myself. And when I look back at that text message from Jessica, I do not feel anything except gratitude. Gratitude that she showed me who she really was. Gratitude that I had the strength to walk away. And gratitude that I found myself on the other side. If you are going through hell right now, just know this. It does not last forever. One day you will wake up and realize that the person who broke you no longer has power over you. And that day you will finally be free. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone from your past try to come back into your life after you had already moved on? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below and share your story. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel, because I will be sharing more stories like this. Stories about resilience, growth, and finding peace after pain. And share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that no matter how broken you feel right now, you have the strength to rebuild. You have the power to become the best version of yourself. And when you do, the people who left you behind will not matter anymore. Take care of yourself. You are worth it.